All right, good morning. Welcome to the Coaches Crew. Ask Coach Pat Coaches Crew, session number three. This is the March 2026 session. Little change in the format. I wanted to do the questions first today and then kind of go into a little rant after that. As always, disclaimer, I am a personal trainer. I'm not a medical professional. I am not a dietitian, so I cannot do any prescribing in those areas. My advice is given to you with my best intentions with my over 50,000 hours of client training. So that's what I'm trying to do. Answer some questions, give you some normal, everyday, basic human answers to questions that you might have, and get a discussion going. So let's start with today. First question I have: what does it actually mean to say I need better glute activation? Is this a real thing or just trainer talk? So when we're talking about glute action or activation, the glute muscles are what activate the hips. So the hips are the most critical joint in your body, affect everything as far as mobility. And when they're not firing properly, those muscles within your hips, your glutes, have particular actions or ways to move your body. And when they're not doing that properly, firing properly, then the body has duplicity. So what it does is tries to use other, excuse me, other muscles to try and create that action. And if we do this repetitively, that causes imbalances and typically leads to pain and different issues. So activation or properly firing off your muscles to cause the proper action is critical to avoid long-term problems. A lot of problems we have with your knees are associated to improper activation in your hips, your glutes. So that's why it's critical. And that actually leads into the next question I have, which is it bad for my knees if the knees go over the toes when I squat? And generally, what we're talking about that is if the knees pass beyond the plane of the toes when we're squatting down during knee bend. So a lot of this actually has to do, we use it as a guideline. I know a lot of trainers use that talking about knees going past toes because of the pressure that's put on the patella tendon. The patella tendon is what's on the front of your knee, that kneecap bone, and the tendon that attaches that. And sometimes, excuse me, when the knee passes in front of the toes, then can cause extra pressure on that, and really has to do with ankle mobility and how long your limbs and different bones are. And everybody's built differently. So that one cue isn't necessarily accurate for everyone, depending on the length of your shins, depending on the mobility of your ankles. The key with this is that we can continue to push down through your entire midfoot while we're squatting. That's the goal of that exercise. If the knee passes too far forward in front of the toes, then the heel will obviously have to lift. And then we're taking pressure away, putting it more on the quadriceps of the knees and taking it off of the hip joint. So that's why it's critical that we are aware of where that knee is traveling to. And within your own body limits, we can keep pressure putting down onto the heel or through the midfoot. So that's why that's important. Next question. If I only have 30 minutes, what gives me the most bang for my buck? Strength, cardio, intervals, or just walking? So this is really targeted to, I would say, the busy person that's just trying to fit in some workout into their day. And 30 minutes is plenty of time to get a workout. Generally speaking, that's what I do during my days, 30-minute workouts. Partly because I can give my full energy for 30 minutes and know I can work hard or high intensity. If it gets longer than that, I'm probably not going to have the energy and ability to do that, certainly now in my life. Um, if we're talking about doing a daily routine, so you're doing 30 minutes every day, the best thing to do would be to rotate through those modalities of exercise. For instance, doing strength training one day. Well, after we do the strength training, your body needs to recover. So you couldn't come back conceivably if you did a full body strength workout and do that the next day because your body's still in recovery for 48 to 72 hours. So if we did a strength workout on a Monday, you probably wouldn't want to come back and do another strength workout over those same muscles until at least Wednesday or Thursday. So in the meantime, it would be great to rotate through those different exercise modalities. For instance, if we worked out on weights on Monday, then maybe we walked on Tuesday. Maybe we did a cardio session on Wednesday. Uh, Came back and did weights on Thursday, then did stretching on Friday. So rotating through different modalities is the best bang for your buck, so to speak, as far as training your body in a way that's going to prevent overtraining and also keep your body interested in adapting. Excuse me. How much protein do I actually need if I'm trying to get stronger, but I'm not some bodybuilder? Protein is critical for everyone. Something that I preach a lot. And most people need more protein in their diet. And there's certain reasons for that. Protein isn't just for muscles, it repairs all of your cells, all your tissues. So everything from your teeth, your skin, your nails, your hair, all these different things are protected or rejuvenated by protein. So it's critical to your body. And your body will prioritize first things that it needs. For instance, your organs are typically prioritized, your brain, and then work our kind of way kind of out. So having enough protein is critical to causing all those things to work. The general, so the RDA recommendation is 10% of your diet, and that's the minimum for protein, which is very low. Generally, what I would recommend is a minimum of 20% of your diet. So if we think about a 2,000 calorie diet for an average person, then we'd want at least 400 calories coming from protein. So that means 100 grams of protein per day. The other thing about protein is you can't get it all in one serving. It's not the way your body works. Your body doesn't store protein. It has to come consistently for your body to use it, generally every 6 to 8 hours by rule of thumb. So if we're saying every 6 to 8 hours, that means a minimum of 3 times a day that we need protein. So generally, we're saying every meal we need to have a good source of protein. If we're looking for 100 grams of protein a day and we only have 3 meals to do that, we can see there already we need at least 30 grams of protein per meal. So for a lot of you, if you start tracking that, you'll see that that's quite a bit. The other great thing about protein is that our body doesn't store it or doesn't easily store it as energy. If we have too much fat or too much carbohydrates, your body will easily transition that to store it in the form of fat. Protein doesn't work that way. It's very hard for your body. Typically, if your body can't use it, can't process it, it'll get rid of it. So having too much of it is not generally going to add a lot of extra calories as far as storage. So that's the other great thing about protein. The other great thing about protein is it's the only nutrient other than water that your body actually craves. So when we're talking about hunger, a lot of times I'll hear people say, "Oh, I'm hungry for chips." And that's just not true. Your brain might be hungry for chips, but your body's not. Your body wants protein. And until you get protein, that hunger won't be satisfied. So that's why you'll be hungry and have a bag of chips and half an hour later be hungry still. So until your body has protein, it's not going to be satisfying that hunger. So protein and water are the two things we need to satisfy hunger. Let's see, what's the next one here? Why am I working out hard and eating pretty well, but the scale is not moving? Well, this goes back again to what I was saying about protein, um, things of that nature. But the scale isn't necessarily the best way to measure progress, and certainly not the only way. If your goal is to lose weight, obviously, at some point that needs to happen. We want that to happen. But if our body is going to lose weight, it has to happen on a small period or a slow process in order to stay. What we don't want to do is change our body's metabolism. Okay, we don't want to lose muscle, and we don't want our body burning less calories when we're losing weight. So a lot of times when people are doing these things well, they're not necessarily checking all the different factors involved. For instance, your waist could be going down, where your body is storing fat, yet your weight is staying the same. So in general, you're definitely becoming more healthy. You're doing probably what you want to do, but it may not be reflected on the scale. So we need to decide the difference between health and weight loss. If your number one goal is weight loss, that's different than your number one goal being health. So make sure we're measuring the proper things. I'm over 50. Can I still actually build muscle, or am I mostly trying to not lose it? I have a lot of older clients, so I get this question a lot. Um, your body is constantly adapting, constantly regenerating. So there's really no such thing as maintaining, or maintaining is just building at the same rate you're losing. So as it for someone that's getting older, over 50 years old, what we're trying to do is not just build, but build so we have reserve for the future. As we get older, we may have an injury, something like that, that takes us away from training. And the problem with being older is our body will lose muscle faster through sarcopenia, basically the body losing flesh, losing muscle, all those things involved happens faster as we get older. So if a 60-year-old takes 3 weeks off, they will lose 6 months of training benefit. So a lot of times as we get older and we have, say, an injury or something, an illness, then there was not a lot of reserve coming out of that. We lose 6 months of training progress, lose all that muscle mass. We're probably never going to get that back. So it's critical that we try and build or be as strong as we can going into the later years, especially women. I tell all of my women clients, when you get over 60 years old, you'll stop worrying about how much weight you have and start worrying about how strong you are. For 70-year, 80, 90-year-old women, it's not generally about weight, it's about frailty. So we need to make sure we're strong more than we need to make sure we're thin. Yeah. This is a fun one. Are cold plunges helping my recovery, or are they just trendy and miserable? So I put throw this under the bucket of fads. Um, if you find some mental joy or resiliency, or it makes you feel good, that's great. As far as scientifically benefiting you, maybe a little bit as far as helping with soreness, as far as recovery, anti-inflammation, but it also has negative effects. If someone's trying to build hypertrophy, a lot of you guys out there are trying to build muscle, trying to look good. Cold plunges can actually retard that or cause that to not happen as well. Um, where I would say cold plunges do have a benefit would be in the athletic world if we're in a tournament style event. So you have repetitive days of activity. Say if I'm in a 3-day rugby tournament, then after first day, after second day, helping you to recover to prepare for the third day, that's where cold plunges would probably be most beneficial as far as science says. So I would say if you don't enjoy them, don't do them. I know I hate it. So I've always been kind of against cold plunges from the beginning. So I've been always looking for reasons why this would be a fad. So I'm tainted a little that way. I sit all day. What's the smallest mobility routine that actually matters? Uh, the one that you do, that's the one that matters. As far as a routine, doesn't have to be anything magical. The most important thing is that you're consistent doing it. So, as far as a mobility routine, I would say try and do something that you're doing many times during the day. If you have a job where you find yourself sitting at a desk for 8, 10 hours a day, try and build something into that schedule where you every hour, every whatever, it's causing you to get up and do something. And again, what you do during you get up and do those things doesn't have to be magical. There's very basic stretches, little mobility activities, little snacks, I call it. That would be what would be most effective. Something that you can do routinely, something that you're going to do over and over again. Um, I like to set reminders. What I tell people, whether it's on your phone, I putting a little trinket around your computer screen, something that you'll notice and go, "Oh yeah, I need to get up and work out or stretch or walk down the hall, touch my toes, all those different things." I used to have a droopy dog from the cartoon that sat on top of my computer monitor and remind me to sit up tall with good posture. So there's little things you can even do at your desk that help promote positive things for your body, and posture being one of them. How should someone train if they have a disability and most group workouts clearly aren't built for them? Um, when it comes to training with disability, you need to find someone that understands your adaptations and will work with you, not try and fit you into their program, but build a program around you. Um, we need to figure out, when I work with people with disabilities, what they can do and how we can adapt to increase that, um, and find success. People um, that need to adapt do not to be told all the things they can't do. They need to find things they can and different ways to move forward with that and try and increase those things to see success. Um, so it's critical that you find a professional that understands, um, working with different modalities, working with different people in different groups, and is cognizant and experienced with that. So that is kind of my 2 cents on that. Is creatine just for young dudes trying to get huge, or should regular adults take it too? Um, Creatine's an interesting one. I remember when creatine was popular in the 90s. Um, at the time, science basically that I read pointed towards single event athletes. For instance, I'm an Olympian working towards a power lift, and then cycling so that you have a high amount of creatine in your body for that event. Over the last 30 years, there's been a lot more research done on it with varying degrees of, I would say, concrete evidence. I know anecdotally there has been quite a bit of success or help people in different areas. I would caution anybody with kidney problems or anything like that to very much check with your doctor before supplementing with creatine. Generally speaking, I would say that there has been majority of positive results. So supplementing, if you're working out, especially weight training, recovering from that, there is hesitantly some benefit there. Um, it is certainly not the most important thing. Um, it's one of those things, maybe way down the line, if you wanted to add one more thing, okay. Um, Again, things like protein, making sure you have enough protein in your body are going to be way more important. The consistency of your routine, how hard you're working out, things of that nature are going to be way more critical than you to your results. So, as I said, it's kind of one of those things that's a little bit of a gray area. There's some suggestion in science that it will help everyday people as far as recovery and, um, performance in the weight training space or resistance training. So take that for what it's worth. I would not necessarily give it my full endorsement, but I think there's probably some reason to look into it if you're one of those people that's really looking for every possible edge or benefit they can. Again, that's my 2 cents on that one. So those are questions I had. Let me check if we have any more. And also, what I wanted to do is kind of on the last part or the last section of this is do a rant of a particular topic of the day. And that way, people that aren't interested in this topic can tune out and all that. And I won't waste their time. So the thing I want to talk about today is joint replacements. Kind of because of the demographics I train, I have lots of clients that have had joint replacements, sometimes several. And it's pretty cool now the different things that are getting replaced. Obviously, knees and hips have been going on for a while, and have, especially with hips, how the process and the recovery and the success has gotten so much better. It's fantastic. There's also, I have now had clients with more commonly shoulder replacements, reverse shoulder replacements, things of that nature, elbows, and now we're starting to see, hands and work on hands and in the spine with discs. So joint replacements with modern medicine are becoming more and more common. People are getting them earlier, which is great. When it comes to joint replacements, the concern years ago, 20, 30 years ago, was the materials wearing out, basically. And once you had a joint replacement, it's very difficult to come back in and replace that joint replacement, so to speak. So we needed that to last for the rest of your life. And the materials at the time didn't necessarily do that. So what doctors would recommend is trying to put off that joint replacement as long as possible, so that could somewhat guarantee that that joint replacement would last the rest of their lives. Um, but the problem with that is the damage that was done while waiting to get that replacement, the deterioration that continued, the lack of mobility, the lack of strength building, the when you're misaligned or you're adapting, you're changing your gait because you have a bad knee, that's causing all kinds of other problems in your hips and on the other leg and all kinds of other issues. So now we realize, especially with the materials being as they are, that they're going to last for a long, long time, if not, forever. Then we can go ahead and get those joint replacements earlier and try and avoid all that other problems that come with it. So that's fantastic. And I would look, anybody that's struggling with pain, I would look into those things as quickly with your orthopedist and figure out a plan for that. You do not need to suffer, and if you are, then that's causing other problems. So let's talk about the actual process of the knee replacement. I like to break this down into kind of three categories, or on a timeline. You have the pre-surgery, you have the immediately post-op, and then you have the long-term or extended rehabilitation, which is typically where I come in as a personal trainer. I will help people generally before surgery, getting ready for it. And this is a critical period. The stronger you can be, the more mobile you can be. And I know it sounds weird. You have something that needs to be replaced, but in actuality, you are going to be quicker in your recovery, your success after surgery by being stronger going into it. Now, this can obviously be difficult because, I mean, that's the reason you're going in to get a replacement, is because of the pain you're suffering from it. Um, but we can look into, especially with the help of a trainer, trying to still maintain that strength without maybe having to articulate that joint as much. Um, and especially the surrounding structures. We're talking about your knees, obviously, the quadriceps, the hamstrings, then the glutes, everything around through the hip, down below as we go down to the ankle, the calf, all that mobility. Like I said, the more you have going in, the better your success is going to be coming out. So that's not a time to say, oh, I'm going to get a surgery in a while, I'm going to stop working out. If anything, that's a time when you really want to focus on trying to do everything you can. Um, Immediately post-op. So that's 0 to 6 weeks after surgery. This is a time when you're working with a therapist, a professional that is used to dealing with that. So we're managing pain at that time, swelling and stiffness. We're trying to. The great thing about surgery, if you ever watch one, what you'll see is the doctors manipulating that joint after putting it in. And once you see this as a trainer, it gives you the confidence to realize that that body is capable of doing really anything afterwards. They have a new joint. The inhibitor is the pain that comes with it, the mobility and pain. So we're really, what the therapist is trying to do is get that client to do as much as they can. Um, Trying to become as mobile as possible, consistent. So they're moving every day. You'll see people walking around in the hospital after a replacement nowadays. Trying to get them moving, trying to get up and recovering as quickly as possible. Um, After that 6 weeks, we'll start to go into the long-term recovery or continued rehabilitation. I generally put a guideline out. I'll tell people 3 months after you have your, say, a knee replacement, you'll be better or feel better than you were going into it. 2 to 3 months, generally speaking, is kind of the bar I use. And that's when I'll start working with clients, usually after they're being released from their physical therapist. This starts a lifelong process. The rehabilitation for that joint doesn't, isn't over the next couple of months. It's not even, over the next year. It's a lifetime process. A lot of times what we might need to do is cure the movement patterns that cause the need for that replacement. And what I mean by that is maybe there was a problem as we went back to earlier, what I talked about with the knee passing over the toe and those kind of things, or glute activation, when those systems aren't firing properly, then that's potentially what was causing pressure on your knee. 90% of knee pain, it's the stat I made up and give it to my clients. 90% of your knee pain is caused, or knee pain is caused from problems in your hips. And generally, what happens when the hips aren't working properly or mobilized properly, then that causes pressure one way or the other, or leaning in or out with the knee joint, which causes wear and tear that is not normal. A normal knee joint with the functioning properly generally won't put that much stress on the knee. But as soon as the knee is a hinge joint, so it's just meant to fold. So anytime we put any more lateral pressure on that, and especially constant lateral pressure because of an imbalance in your hip, that's going to cause that wear and tear, generally what's going to lead to knee replacements happening. So we need to, in the post physical therapy stage, really go back and diagnose and make sure that we're not going to continue that same pattern that's causing imbalance and problems. Um, the common mistakes with that are, like I said, stopping your rehab. Rehab is constant. It goes on really for the rest of your life. It needs to be part of, your existence going forward. Um, Avoiding discomfort. So, like I said, when we have the confidence as practitioners to know and see what goes on with the knee and hip joint, and see the doctors mobilizing that joint right after surgery and knowing what it's capable of doing, then we have the struggle of what the client or the patient is able to do as far as with pain limitations. And we need to be able to extend, obviously to a certain degree, but we have to understand that that's part of the recovery process. Um, it's kind of like working out with weights. Sometimes we do get sore, but generally it's after our first workout. Now, if we don't work out again for 6 months and again have our first workout, you're going to be sore again. But if you continue to work out after that first workout, your body will adapt and you will not be sore, even though you're doing the same things. So that's the same thing with rehabilitation. Sometimes we have to get over that initial pain in order to get to a point where we can do those things without that pain, which is a very difficult thing to do mentally, which I understand, which is why a lot of people will quit or stop. So that's about all I had today. Let's go over my notes really quickly here, see if we don't have any last minute questions. And I appreciate y'all coming. Please give me questions for the future. I'm going to be doing this once a month. The idea is to get my knowledge and experience out to as many people as possible and try and help as many people as I can. So look me up at askcoachpat.com. Check me out at Substack at askcoachpat, and all the social medias. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks for coming in.